Okay, while there's nothing wrong with displaying a range of temperatures in Celsius from -60 to +30 on a sequential color ramp like this, there's nothing wrong with that because negative temperatures don't mean like anti-temperature or no temperature. It is still a graduated scale in temperature from cold to warm. But by putting a warm color ramp on this, going from yellow to red, we're still saying temperatures of negative, 60 degrees Celsius are, a warm color. And that's the only reason that I would say, let's just right now experiment with changing that up a little bit. Prepare you for next week. Let's practice this really quick. First of all, we created a NetCDF raster layer. So this isn't really a full-blown raster data set. If I hover and show you, if you read that, if you can see that it's still a .nc data set. So the first thing we're going to do, just to force it to behave properly, is we're going to export this to a standalone existing raster. Taking a quick look at the inputs, the coordinate system is coming from the original data set, so we don't need to change that. Therefore, no geographic transformation needs to take place. We're not going to clip it. Our cell size is still 1 degree by 1 degree as it was. Pixel type, if you wanted to check it, you could go into the properties here and verify that it's 32-bit float. But this is being auto-filled by the properties of the data set that we're exporting. Our output format is going to be TIFF file format. You can see there are a lot of options in here, but TIFF works great for an image like this, and we don't need to compress. So in this case, our default settings are just right. So that happened really fast, the export. And you can see I've got a new data set down here that looks just like the other ones. We're going to turn this one off and go back over here. All right, let's try putting some new symbology on this. A diverging color ramp is a good idea because we want to set our midpoint to a neutral color and then have the positive temperatures in warm colors and the negative below freezing temperatures in cool colors. To me, that's more intuitive. So let's go in, oops, we want to leave that and go down here and go find one. There are a lot of options, and there are probably more options if we were to show all, but we don't need to overcomplicate this. I like this one a lot because I like the graduation from white to yellow. But if you look at the midpoint here is yellow, and that's imparting some bias. So I'm just going to go for this red to black. We're going to flip this to get it to draw correctly. I just right-clicked. So we flipped that. So this is closer to correct. But because we don't have an even distribution of values around 0, these colors aren't going to be mapped correctly. At least they shouldn't be. If we go up here and use our Explore tool and sample gray, they should be negative. The white ones should be 0 or very close to it, but you can see the white cells are actually sampling at -12. So we don't have an even distribution around 0 of our values. And we even have some red cells or orange cells that are coming up at negative values. So that's how you can check to make sure that your symbology is correct. In this case, it's not, and it's because of that uneven distribution around 0 of our values. So if I go into symbology, we can fix that really easily. If instead of using %clip or standard deviation, we use min-max, we can go into the data set and use custom settings. And what we'll do is just force the max value to be equal and opposite to our min value because it's the greater absolute value of the two. So we'll just set that to 56. We don't have to get too fancy about it because the precision isn't that great. I'm going to do the same thing up here and put units in there just because it's the right thing to do. Now we've forced this color ramp to draw over a range of values that min and maxes out at equal and opposite values, so that 0 should be our midpoint, which should draw at 0. And this did adjust a little bit, but we can force it to redraw. Make sure we're getting it just right. And let's resample across the gradient of colors here. So negative 9.7, negative 5.6, negative 1.2, and 5. So we've dialed that gradation in, and now we have a more intuitive depiction of this range of values. We did lose the fact that our max value used to be 30, so this is a slightly misleading legend, but you can see that we don't have these darkest colors of red anywhere on the map, so it is drawing correctly. If we go to some of these darkest areas, like the Red Sea that we had sampled earlier, they're still going to read correctly at almost 30, which is our max value. But the good thing is that we're not drawing 30 with the highest, deepest red. We're drawing 30 where it should be, which is about halfway up this ramp between white and the darkest red. So this is a legitimate display of our data.